China's zero COVID policy is stupid. Sometimes it's even stupider than stupid, because it has zero to do with actually fighting COVID. Welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by Incogni. You probably know that companies are collecting your personal data, but you may not realize just how many. Dozens, maybe hundreds, most of which you've never heard of, and you have no idea what they're doing with it. Incogni helps stop them. I'll tell you more at the end. So, China's zero COVID policy has pushed society to the limit. And that's because so many of the zero COVID policies are excessive, inhumane, or just plain stupid. A video has been going viral throughout China recently showing two girls in Guangzhou who went outside to get their food delivery order. They were confronted by neighborhood committee members and COVID prevention workers. In the beginning, it seemed that the reason the two girls were confronted was because of vaccines or because one of them wasn't wearing a mask. But then things took a very quick turn. The girls were suddenly wrestled to the ground and then had both hands tied behind their back. Remind me again how all of this close contact is supposed to help stop the spread of COVID? The local police reported that the two women, Wang and Li, both 23 years old from Heilongjiang, did not abide by the regulations of the epidemic prevention and tried to forcibly pass through the control checkpoint in Luntuo Village, Haiju District. Among them, Li did not wear a mask. Both of their health codes were yellow, with no valid COVID tests since October 30th. Though in the video it shows that the girl who was wearing the mask got tackled first. This image then circulated across the Chinese internet. It shows both girls tied up, with one of them lying on the ground. Now you'd think most people would be up in arms about this, but if they are, you wouldn't know it from the heavily censored Chinese internet. All the top comments visible on Weibo are the ones that support the authorities for manhandling the two girls. Things like, hashtag Guangzhou police on two girls tied up on the ground, hashtag tie a good knot, they deserve it. Beautifully done. This was well handled. Not only did the girls refuse to wear masks, but yet they had a temper. I support the public security organ. The main argument is that the girls were rude when they were confronted. Which is fair, there were a lot of insults thrown around that afternoon. And the reason they were rude might be because they faced weeks or even years of unjustified lockdowns. They've also faced harsh authoritarian policies like the government tracking people's every movement on their health app and forcing healthy people to get repeated COVID tests. So, did they show attitude? Sure. But does that justify this? Imagine a world where you're only allowed to say yes. That video is, of course, just one of many, many examples of how Chinese authorities have gone to extremes to implement the zero COVID policy. I'll tell you more after the break. Welcome back. China's zero COVID policy and all the rules and lockdowns that have come with it was never about health care or the well-being of the citizens. It was always about politics. For example, remember how Chinese authorities rolled out the QR health code system for the sake of public safety? Citizens need to report their COVID status before being allowed anywhere. Well, authorities in some places have used it as a tracking app to thwart protesters. Health code turns red, now you can't get on a train or a bus to get to the protest. Living in China sounds like a socialist paradise. In other words, it's like sitting in this chair while the government reassures you you'll be fine. In fact, it's good for you. What we're now hearing is that China claims they will ease up on their COVID restrictions, but still keep up with their fight against the virus. How is this possible? It's because even though some Chinese cities may say they'll end their lockdowns, they still implement stealth restrictions. Stealth restrictions are just a fancy way of saying, I know you didn't get the memo because there was no memo. Now go to your room and stay there. In Shanghai and Shenzhen, home to tech giant Tencent Holding Limited, local authorities rarely issue announcements on school closures anymore. Parents are informed by schools verbally or through messaging apps that physical classes have been suspended because of COVID curbs. Authorities in Zhengzhou said a shutdown of controlled areas ended on Tuesday, but many locals said on social media they still couldn't leave their neighborhoods. This way, officially, there are no lockdowns, but in practice, of course, there are. But this can only keep going for so long. We mentioned in an episode recently how several places in China have seen huge protests, many of them sparked by people's pent-up anger. Just last week, Chinese citizens were in an uproar over the death of a 4-month-old baby in China. The girl died after suffering vomiting and diarrhea while in quarantine at a hotel in the city of Zhengzhou. When medical staff arrived and the child tested negative for COVID-19, they refused to treat her on the grounds that the case was not urgent. This means the medical staff believed that a positive COVID result is more of an emergency than a 4-month-old baby on the verge of death. This wasn't even the first baby-related tragedy to come out of strict COVID policies. In fact, it's been an ongoing phenomenon since the very beginning of the zero-COVID lockdowns. Some people take matters into their own hands. In one recent case this month, a young father armed himself with a knife when getting stopped at a city checkpoint.
我跟你们说了，特殊情况，我儿子那么大，现在急需奶粉，囊中羞涩，知道吗？已经等了好长时间了。
You can see the father is holding the knife as he explains the situation. The police let the man go, but then later they took him into custody. There were so many police officers surrounding him. Couldn't at least one go get him some baby formula while the rest figured out how to arrest him? According to the police report on Weibo, the man was let off easy with a 100 yuan fine. Yep, heroes. And then there's this video, which reportedly happened in a county in Shanxi. On November 21st, a man was stopped outside in broad daylight while he was on his way to buy medicine. Officers told him to put his hands against the wall, and he complies. But it's not enough. After a search confirms the man is unarmed, the guy in plain clothes takes it a step further, or at least a knee further. While his knee is on the guy's neck, the plainclothes guy asked why the man was outside today, to which the man could only respond by saying his arm hurts and that he's taking medicine. Is this unfair? Are Chinese police being too extreme? If people think so, you probably won't hear about it on the Chinese internet. It's gotten so bad that Chinese people are actually risking talking to foreign media, like CNN. This guy lost his father when his dad collapsed during a lockdown, and pandemic workers wouldn't let his family drive him 5 minutes to the hospital. An ambulance showed up an hour later, when it was too late.
The local government killed my dad, he tells me, breaking down in tears. I just want to get justice for my dad. Why did you lock us down? Why did you take my dad's life away? His 58-year-old father needed emergency medical help when their building was locked down. He says there were no COVID cases in the building, but China seals off entire neighborhoods, even when there are only suspected cases nearby.
Now, this is a tragic story, but it's what this guy says during the interview that's really dangerous.
Do you blame your father's death on this country's zero COVID policy?
Yes, very sure.
That is a risky thing to say, because the Chinese Communist Party's zero COVID policy is above criticism. But Chinese people are getting so fed up with it and all the terrible consequences that they're actually willing to go on camera and say it, even though they might get arrested. And if China's internet is too censored, they'll find other ways to get their message out. Because any comments critical of zero COVID, let's just say, those discussions have their hands tied. And this episode is sponsored by Incogni. Whenever you do anything online, there's a huge number of companies that collect your personal data. Your name, your email, your home address, your credit card info, and lots more. That's why I signed up for Incogni. When I signed up in February this year, I discovered there were 76 data brokers that potentially had my private information. Since then, that number has nearly doubled. And that means companies are buying and selling my personal info. That makes it easier for companies and governments to track me. And even worse, because that data is now out there, it can be hacked. Data breaches are on the rise this year, which means my personal information is at risk more than ever. Fortunately, Incogni is working hard to force these companies to delete my data. Less than 10 months after signing up, Incogni had already gotten my details removed from 69 of these data brokers, with 77 more in progress. And I didn't actually have to do anything after signing up. Incogni just handles it. So I recommend you get Incogni for yourself. Click the link below or go to incogni.com/uncensored. The first 100 people to use the code Uncensored will get 20% off. Get your personal data off the market with Incogni. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching China Uncensored.